Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, hello everyone. I'm Vinay Kumar, your host for today's session. Before we start with our session, I would like you to go through some user group rules to ensure we are user focused and safe, to create a safe environment for all the users. There are certain rules you need to follow. So no self promotion or sales pitching of any kind is permitted in these user events. You are requested not to contact people outside the user group without their consent. And also, in case someone share their case study or some use cases or findings with us in user group, please do not share that information without taking the consent from those. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. This meeting is being recorded. In case you do not want to be a part of this recorded session, you can drop and you will receive the recording at a later stage. Okay. And if you are not yet connected with our chapter, you can browse through the user groups and navigate to the Chandigarh Tri-City user group and create your account with the email associated with you, or maybe the Adobe account. And then once you join our chapter, you will receive the notifications and reminder about our new events. Here are a list of some upcoming events. You can go through the list and join the events as per your interest. Okay, and this is about the Adobe Champion has selected as a finalist for CMX Growth Marketing Community Award, and we would like you to support us to win this award.
Yeah. So the voting it's closing on January 9th. So it's a big announcement from Adobe Champion Program. So we need your support. Do vote for us. All
Okay.
right.
Okay. Let's start with today's session. I'm handing it over to speakers Valkar and Ruchi. Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Vinay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining with us today. My name is Ruchi Lapran. I'm working as Senior Manager in Grizzy Interactive. So I am 2 times running Marketo Adobe Champion and 5 times certified business practitioner in Marketo. Over to you, Bulkar.
Thanks, Ruchi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Bulkar, 6 times certified Marketo expert, and was recognized for the third time this year by Adobe for championship. And have been working on Marketo since about 12 years now. Spent a lot of time at Crazity, now working on the enterprise side at Here Technologies. That's a bit about me. And
Yep.
uh,
Let's
am
get
I
started.
audible? Saket is saying that audio is extremely low for him. Ruchi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. I'll continue. I'll continue.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Thanks, Vikas.
Thank you.
Let's start. I want to start with a slide from a user group we did almost a bit more than a year ago, where we were discussing use cases about how to use ChatGPT for analytics. And now we know that that use case is pretty much like general knowledge today. What this user group is going to cover, so this user group is going to cover some broad elements. We will use a visual framework to position the AI solutions we will be discussing today, which is inspired from the Martech of 2026 report. And we're going to cover some AI features, and we are going to introduce the agentic AI capabilities which are possible with Adobe Marketo Engage from our perspective. Um, and uh, so this was like, more than a year ago. But this year, if we look at the next slide, um, We were grateful that the community contributed a lot, and we have at least 10 user groups, which we have the recordings for on the YouTube, Adobe's official channel as well, discussing a variety of use cases, like the Austin user group or the Salt Lake City. I mean, the users have really shared a lot with, we're grateful that for that. Uh, just wanted to share this because there is so much interest in how to use AI, and there is so much activity in this area. And but before we begin to discuss the features and the capabilities, I want to lay some groundwork unless we have not covered. If we go to the next slide, this is the this was a framework which Chief Martech discussed in their latest report, Martech for 2026, wherein it mentions that when we're talking about agentic AI, it's not something like something is an agent or not. There's a spectrum. Something can be more of an orchestrator agent, which is like the extreme category. Something may not be an agent. Some agents might be simply an task agent. Some agents might be decision agents. So, this distinction is important for this conversation because we are going to refer this spectrum a lot throughout this user group. So, let's spend a minute here. The no agent, the first item we see on the chart, that is a structured workflow like some lead scoring program we have in Marketo. We don't have any probabilistic aspect in that. When I say probabilistic, that means like something which can change anytime we run the workflow. But in lead scoring, if you run a workflow 100 times, the results are the same. Unlike a task agent where you are letting the system user talk to some LLM, and that LLM has a different result every time. That would be a task agent. And if we shift a bit towards right, there are more sophisticated forms of agent. In one case wherein the agent takes a decision on what next flow step to take, or even in some cases adaptive agent, which is more like learning from the outcomes and using the reinforcement learning to guide its next action. And the extreme case be orchestration agent, where the agent itself creates the entire flow itself. So uh, wanted to also clarify that this is not a maturity model of agents. It also does not mean that the task agent is less agentic than an adaptive agent. These are simply different categories, and we want to look at it from this lens, look at the capability from this lens, just to get a sense of where the capability we are going to discuss today exists. But for our discussion, I wanted to expand a little bit in the next slide. um, so you can see like this is what I just took that spectrum, and this is the diagram where we can place our use cases, the existing things we know about Marketo workflows or different kind of programs. All of them are rule based. We have a lot of smart campaigns, requested campaigns, and things like consent management workflows or life cycle models. All of these are not agents, right? And there is some color coding we're going to use. So if we are developing that capability, we will mark that as yellow. If we are integrating that capability with by some other platform, that would be green. If that capability is inbuilt, that would be gray. Okay, so co-pilots, for example, are something which is inbuilt in many platforms, so that's why it's gray. But we also have this left side where we place the AI assistants versus the right side where we will be placing the AI agent. So all this is about how agentic is the use case. Is it deterministic, probabilistic? Is it an agent or an assistant? Is the agent configured, embedded, or built? Does it augments the existing use cases or replaces it? So it's kind of an aggregation of um, what I felt after the reading the report. So that's where I'll wanted to have this foundation before we move ahead. But having said that, I would like Ruchi to take it over from here to start with the first use case of predictive audiences.
Yeah, thank you, Bulkar. Yes, truly said. So, Basically, AI in marketing is not just one thing, it's many things at many levels of autonomy. And over the past few years, so we have seen a lot of excitement around AI agents. So tools that promise to think, to decide, and act on our behalf. Um, so that's why we were going to cover a few of the inbuilt features and kind of tools that Marketo, really offers us. Predictive audiences is one of that. It acts as an input agent, which is utilizing the AI and ML models in order to prioritize and score and segment leads on the base of their likelihood to engage with your campaigns or where they're most likely to convert. So, predictive audiences, this feature really helps marketers in order to shift their manual segmentation to the intelligent targeting, also creating relevant messaging and deciding which campaigns should be triggered at what time. And also, it also helps marketers to kind of, involve directly with sales at the right point of time. On the right hand side, you would see that predictive audiences, we have some filters inbuilt that Marketo offers. For example, likelihood to attend and register, which is more relevant and can be used in case of event programs. Sorry, event programs. And if you see filter for likelihood to unsubscribe, it can be used only in conjunction. So you have to apply another qualifier filter or smart list, and you can then use these filters in addition to that. For lookalike of program members and lookalike of smart list members. So these two filters, they can only be used. They can be used in all program types, basically. So there's no restriction for these. Here you would see the glimpse how you can use these filters. Okay, and also there's some point that we should be keeping under consideration when we are planning to use this feature for email send. In case of that, so whenever the predictive audiences notice there's an error in evaluation of predictive filters, or calculating the audience or picking up the audience, so it will automatically abort the campaign. In case of smartless filters, they are only available for batch campaigns, and you can use up to 5 predictive filters. And they cannot be used in external smart lists. They don't support it, this feature at the moment. And it can be easily used for data segmentations. And it currently has an input limit of 1 million of qualified people. And if you want to use for web personalization, again, we know that it's an add-on. So they can be used as a combined power. So you can adopt web personalization add-on and predictive audiences features both. Here are some practical uses that I wanted to also cover, just to explain a little bit about how you can use this feature for finding the right people to engage. So, this feature uses machine learning in order to analyze the historical data. For example, your past conversions or successes on the basis of demographic and behavioral attributes. And also, it allows you to group leads and accounts on the basis of their likelihood to convert, or when they can take a desired action. So instead of asking like who meets my rules, so it answers who looks most like to my best, most like my best customer. For improving lead qualification, which is beyond static scoring. So traditional lead scoring model, it heavily relies on fixed point values and assumptions, but predictive audiences, it continuously learns from the outcomes. It identifies the patterns that humans may miss, and it adjusts as per the buyer behavior changes. So it's that dynamic. Then comes the smarter segmentation for campaigns and nurture. Predictive audiences, they kind of create a dynamic audience segments, which can be used in smart lists for designing your engagement programs, your campaign targeting or strategy. And also it can be used when you're applying a suppression logic, for example, likelihood to unsubscribe. Okay, and enabling agent like behavior. Predictive audience, they it does not take action on its own, basically. So it becomes really powerful when it's paired with automation. For example, predictive audience equal to high propensity, or Marketo workflow equal to kind of fast track nurture for, or sales alert, or lead routing for that matter. And this is where predictive audiences, it fits in the agentless, uh, in the agenticness spectrum. So it also reduces the manual effort and bias, but less time spent improvising in scoring rules. So you don't have to really rely on kind of gut based assumptions and improvise a scoring every time. So better alignment is noticed between marketing and sales. And also it kind of acts as a second opinion backed by data. And also it's very important to know what predictive audiences does not do. Okay, so it does not replace lead scoring entirely. It does not automatically uh, route your leads, and it does not automatically sends emails to the leads. Okay, so it requires some kind of definitions in order to design your outcomes. It can be success based events or any particular targeting that you're planning. And here in this slide, let's talk about how you can actually apply that in the real world. So these are basic examples where you can use this feature for starting with the precision email targeting. Okay, so let's take an example where a SaaS company is launching a product which is suited to target only the top 30% of users who are most likely to engage based on predictive scores. Also, this reduces campaign cost while boosting open rates and conversion. So here's a method you can adopt whenever you're planning a product launch. You collect predictive engagement scores based on the past or historical engagement. Again, you can filter the top 30% based on the scores achieved. So you can plan to send targeted campaigns, targeted emails, or the piece of high likelihood of leads. After analyzing the performance, notice that whether your results are meeting the targets or not. Okay, and if they are, then you can plan to expand to a broader segment, and in case not, then you can always take a step back and see how you can optimize the content, or some optimization is needed for your targeting strategy, and if you can play around with frequency. In this next example for campaign goal tracking and forecasting, so for example, an event marketing team for a large tech conference uses predictive modeling to estimate that how many registrations their segmented email list will generate, allowing for smarter budget allocation and follow planning. Okay, so how we can apply that? So start your campaign planning, define your registration goals and timeline, whether you want to put a cap or not. Prepare your segmented email list on the basis of historical data. And once you have viewed projected registrations using the feature, you can estimate your modeling. You can estimate how many people are going to register. And once the projection meets your goal, you can allocate the budget accordingly. So you can easily segment and you can plan your budget wisely. And after your budget allocation, you can also take a step towards follow planning in the form of sending reminders to them, or how do you want to set up your nurtures in future. Also, you can finalize messaging and schedule, and then you can launch the webinar campaign successfully. And in case the projections does not meet your goal, then again, take a step back, adjust your strategy, your targeting, your messaging, and the cadence that you wanted to adopt. So these are a few use cases that you can apply, or where predictive audiences can be of great help. Okay, in this segment, like Bilkar covered this spectrum. So where does predictive audiences fall in this spectrum? Under the task AI agent. And why? Because it performs a limited task to stamp likelihood using the estimated probabilities, and also how it's been kind of placed under the legend, that's likely which is happening as a machine learning model. So it's augmenting the data that we have, and it's outlined as red. And since it's inbuilt, so we are using a gray background. So basically it's like how predictive audiences is fitting under this spectrum. Okay, so here I'm going to talk about email designer, which has been in talks for quite a while. And under email designer, we are going to cover the AI assistant, how it works at a higher level, and how it utilizes the prompt library. Here are different sections or power features that AI assistant has to offer. For example, generating image to HTML feature. You can upload any image, Figma. It can be in the JPG format. It can be in the PNG format, or maybe a screenshot of a design, or handmade screenshot of a design. That that can also work. And how it works is AI will analyze the design. Um, it will detect the layout structure and how many text or blocks. Basically it analyzes the entire design and then automatically generates the HTML. And also you can review it, refine it, and personalize, apply tokens, apply any level of customizations that you need to apply. So you will have at least more than half a percent of your work done automatically. Then you can also generate email structure from scratch, but the condition is you can only use the existing template. Okay, so it will again analyze it, it will detect the layout structure, like how many rows or columns or sections are needed, and then about the text box and headings or buttons or CTAs are needed, and it will create an email for you, ready to use email. So again, what is the benefit? It's actually speeding up the email creation, and it's reducing the dependency on HTML developers. So basically non-technical users, they can also use this feature and launch their campaigns faster. Okay, then comes the subject line generate for generating image and generating copy, text copy. So move on to this slide to just show you how it works. So under the AI assistant, so you can see that you can use reference content. Again, if you have a subject line in your mind, so you can simply type it, and using a reference content, you can ask the prompt library to refine your subject line, or like it created this variation as an example, posting a question to recipients for gauging their curiosity, and you're offering a free subscription or particular offer or surprise. It could be an end of your gift vouchers or something, so you can always try and test. So here is the text settings, where you can decide your tone, decide the buying groups that you're targeting. If you're going to send the email to a decision maker, you can select that option. And if your marketing journey stage is at, you're still evaluating or in the intent phase, so you can always select that. And also you can select the tone. You want to keep it professional, you want to keep it casual. So it will pick up all these signals and your input, and it will present two variations, and you can always pick and choose whichever suits the best for the need. And the reference content is the best phase where you can personalize your content, here for generating subject line or modifying the text. It can be used in both cases. All right, here is another powerful feature by Marketo, which is your email designer. It's now powered with Adobe Express. So if you want to edit your image right there and then inside Marketo, you don't have to take it outside of Marketo and do the changes needed. So it's powered by Adobe Express now, and you can resize the image, you can remove background, you can crop the image as per selected dimensions, and you can also convert your image to JPG. So this is a really cool feature inside Marketo now. Okay. And now let's see, where does it fall again? It's an AI assistant. So here's the legend here. So it's a part of email designer, and it's assisting with content creation with the help of generative AI. Okay, it's a fun question. I mean, just wanted to give everyone a break. So here's a question, and I would urge every participant to share their thoughts. So, what happens if AI fails? Okay, so let's understand how it may happen. So, for example, your predictive scoring model, it suddenly starts making all the leads as high fit leads. So, what do you think went wrong here? And here are the options. Wrong fields mapped during integration, AI learned from a bad data set, intense score, intense source, it misfired, or all of the above. So give a moment. If anybody wants to participate, you can type in your answers here. B, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Right answer is D. And why? Because AI, it learns on the based of information or data that you're feeding it. Okay, so if the data is incorrect, the field mapping, whatever you are defining, so AI will not be able to distinguish. Okay, so it's just going to pick up the data that you're going to feed, and AI basically amplifies whatever you feed it. So bad data, right data, weak signal, strong signal, it's going to amplify that. But it doesn't fix broken foundation, it just makes the strong foundation smarter. Okay.
Mhm.
I'll go back to the question. I think I can see the question. How is the likelihood? Let me go back to the. Yeah. So, how is the percentage of likelihood decided? It's not the predefined range actually. It's on. So whenever you enable that model, okay, so the performance of this model, it heavily relies on how frequently the model is used. So percentage is likelihood is like, if you can say that attendance likelihood is greater than 50% for me. Okay. And if the likelihood to unsubscribe, it is less than a 0% for me. So that's how you define the percentage. Okay, it's not a predefined, it's on the basis of the event that you're going to conduct, or it's on the basis of how you're planning to segment your audiences, or how you're defining your kind of what we can call it as an ideal customer profile. Okay, so the way you're going to plan your campaign first, so on the basis of that you have to define the percentage of likelihood, either it's for unsubscribe rate or how many people may register. Okay. Yeah. Moving on to, yeah, identifying LLM traffic in Marketo. So, Balkar, I'll hand it over to you then.
Great. Thanks for covering those topics pretty nicely, Ruchi. I mean, I actually shared this URL on that about how the likelihood is decided, but you also mentioned that it's
Mhm.
based on the frequency of how we train it.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a recent movie I watched called The Great Flood, but that's for later. Uh, thanks for that. Let's get into more items. It's clear that, although I mean, this is overwhelming, I want to confess that the
Mhm.
speed of upgrades is definitely way more than the speed at which I can absorb this. But Let's talk about LLM traffic now.
Yeah.
It's a very hot emerging field, and I think it has its valid reasons. Adobe also has its own LLM optimizer, but I just want to share a quick hack here that usually if someone clicks a link in LLM enabled chatbots like ChatGPT, Perplexity, they would usually stamp the UTM source automatically. So ChatGPT does that automatically, not on all the links, but on many links. So if you use this smart list, it's a direct way to see that okay, you would immediately know that at least these people clicked the link on my website using a chat session. The general importance is that if someone is clicking the link in a chat session, it's usually higher intent. But there is a nuance in that, like we don't know what that intent is. That intent could be, an intent in career at the brand. That intent could also be an intent in purchase. We don't know what is the intent, but we do know that the intent is better than a generic click on um, a link on a Google search. So that's that. Just wanted to have this before we get into some workflows and agentic AI. So Ruchi, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, let's spend a couple of seconds. I think we are already half past three. So let's give it 10 seconds if you want to mention anything here. What is the one boring task you would love AI to take over? For me, it was creating this image by Nano Banana instead of Canva.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anyways,
Yeah.
we can move to the agentic AI and more boring use cases. So I want to cover this workflow, which is more about data movement from Marketo to an LLM, and then how it gets updated back to Marketo, more from a conceptual point. So um, in this case, we're going to discuss the use case where we use a webhook to define the data which we want to send. So in our case, let's take the example of a lead ID and country. Okay, we define that what data do we send ultimately to the code. So yes, there is a code element here or an application. And what that application does, we will cover that shortly. But overall, let's just understand we define what data to send, why we are sending it. We're sending it to ask LLM to do something about it. It's pretty similar to me talking to ChatGPT, but in a workflow, it's Marketo talking to ChatGPT through a code, right? And then that code is writing the response which Marketo gets back from ChatGPT to the lead record. Okay, so it's kind of an overall flow. So we develop an application. So if we develop an application which asks an element, LLM, to perform an action on specific data. That data is defined in the webhook. That what data we are sending. We can control what data we send, right? If we don't include the email address here, we are not sending the email address to the LLM. The payload of the webhook contains the fields to use, and I think we can go zoom in a bit here. If we go to the next slide, whatever code we're writing that lives somewhere. In my case, it was on a Vercel endpoint, which is a pretty nice platform to uh, host your code. And you don't need to do that. There is an option to integrate as well, but initially I'm covering how to develop this if you have access to developer knowledge. And in this case, in the webhook section, we are using that payload template where I'm defining two things. It's a lead ID and it's a lead country, right? And there is more configuration setting, like is it what's the token encoding, what's the request type. It's a bit developer oriented language, but think of it like, okay, what we are doing here is we are defining what data we send, and then the code is basically a functionality which picks this data from webhook, writes a prompt, sends that prompt to LLM and receives a response, and ultimately writes that response to the Marketo lead. That is an agentic nature when the code is requesting the prompt to LLM and receives the response from LLM. That's where the probabilistic element comes in. That's where it becomes an agentic workflow. Okay. Now let's cover it in more detail. So what is this exact code? So the code is essentially an instruction, right? Instruction meaning you define all the things the code should do. I mean, if you're a developer, you can do it in a way you like to. I mean, I was experimenting with it using Node.js. There can be many other ways. So I'm not an expert in development here, but the whole idea was to understand how the agents are configured and how the data moves across the layer. So the code part which we have, that is a set of three parts, which is the instructions, the system prompt. For example, you are a data cleaning assistant, standardize country into a standard country code. Now, when this code will be sent to LLM, it is not going to use the term country, it's going to use the actual country because I'm going to configure the code to pick the real company value from the webhook payload. Okay, so that's why every time we call this webhook, which ultimately triggers this workflow, every time the code is going to generate a unique prompt, and of course it's going to generate a unique response from LLM, which in one case is that, okay, I want to just fix this country value to a country code. In this case is dynamic, right? The country value is dynamically pulled from a webhook. So if we look at the workflow, Marketo sends the context, right, which we define in the webhook level, the country, email suspended, reason, notes, whatever the field we want to define, right? That is something which we do in that case. And then it pushes to the other parts. And it's not just one workflow, one use case, right? In right now, we are discussing the absolute basic use case of country, but uh, it's not about the use case here, it's more about the workflow here. You can apply the same thing where you can define different set of data, different context, and trigger different kind of use cases. For example, our case is to normalize something which is fuzzy. So everything in data normalization and data hygiene is just one use case. Or we could say that, okay, tell me what this error code means. Or we could say categorize this free text like person notes which the sales team uses. So it's really like you combine your instruction in the code with the data you define in the payload of webhook. That means that you combine the context from Marketo with the instruction which you embed inside the prompt, and that prompt is embedded inside the code. Okay. Right now we're talking about code, but please be with me. There are other options as well. Um, this is a task AI agent, right? Why? Because we have like I just covered three task agents. If it's fuzzy normalization, now you could do country cleanup, you could do company cleanup, you could clean up any field. You define the field in the webhook and you define the prompt what to do about it, and this workflow should be able to address that need. You define the field which contains the error code, which like if you look at email suspended reason, it usually contains the error code, and you can ask LLM to explain it and write back to the field, to specific field you can define. And you can do free categorization of sorry, you can do categorization of free text. For example, if someone is adding comments upon like what do they need, or where did you find us, like the self reported attribution, you could categorize that into um, unique values instead of open ended responses. So those are three use cases. But more important, this is a meta workflow which gives you many use cases. So once you grasp that, okay, we can just combine context and prompt, and that gives you the uniqueness, that means you can do everything where you are requiring think of it like, if you are able to let Marketo talk to ChatGPT, every use case you can think of is something this workflow can do. Okay, so but now let's get to the next slide. um, the problem is that, in this case, most of the general practitioner, like, we lack time. It's not always a wise idea to develop things yourself unless you have access to development teams. So a good idea is usually is to integrate a platform, right? Like n8n. The workflow is the same, exactly the same. You define the data in the webhook. The you know platform picks up that data. Now everything which your code was doing, uh, some platform would do that, right? In a sense, when you write that code, you are actually building an application. So instead of creating an application, you use an existing application like n10 or flowsteps.io. There could be more, and if you are from a developer ecosystem, you would know that there are cloud platforms, there are serverless platforms, a lot of platforms where you can do this. So in this example, I'm using the n10. It got very popular this year, wherein you pull context into the AI agent node, which the n10 has. So think of node as pretty similar to something like smart campaign in Marketo, and it pulls that data and it combines that with a prompt. And on the left, I have a snapshot, um, wherein n8n has a specific AI agent node, which also uses the memory functions. The code which we wrote, that was very basic, like it was just requesting an LLM and receiving a response. But when you expand on it, you can have some memory function, you can have tool functions. Gets more complicated, not going to cover today. But for the most part, it was more about having a workflow understanding. So if we can get to the next part. In this case, right, if you are integrating, then I would place them in the task AI agent as well. Like all of them are in task AI. The only difference would be that I would mark it as green if we are integrating it with the platform. If I would have been developing it, that would be yellow. And there can be different use cases based on whatever brand you are working with, that whether this is required to develop or whether do you require to integrate, right? I personally incline toward integrating with the platform instead of developing that ourselves. It usually is better to decide based on how we can solve business problem instead of should we develop or not. So that's there. And just to expand on it, like we just discussed two, and there can be many more workflows. So you can see the second column here is about the context, which is the webhook payload. Then you can have a system prompt. We used a system prompt called like normalize country into the full official country code. You could standardize the company to most commonly accepted company name. You can classify a persona using title, level, and industry. You can infer by rule from job title and department. You can map industry to the closest standard B2B industry. There can be many, many use cases. So the idea here is that this is a meta workflow which gives you a list of use cases you can use. So that is something I really liked. uh, I mean, there are more things in the world of AI happening. We have MCP, we have more kind of ways to connect things, but we wanted to focus on what we can do right now, and this is what we wanted to discuss. And of course, like uh, not every time you need to do it. Many things require deterministic outcomes, so I would rather not do lead scoring using AI. Sometimes it has to make sense. It's like I would generally recommend don't apply AI just for the sake of applying AI. If it doesn't make sense, it's usually better to do it the traditional way. So it's not that agentic is better than traditional. Traditional has its own pros and cons. Agentic has its own pros and cons. Autonomous agents, which we have in discussions, they have their own strengths, and the traditional are more predictable, more deterministic. So there's that. And also, of course, beyond just developing it, there is so much more involved, which I want to cover in the next slide. That um, there is this thing called vibe coding, which is pretty popular. And personally, right now, I am pretty much against vibe coding if you are not vibe learning. So if I am developing something and if I don't understand the code, it's going to result into some technical debt, right? I'm not going to take ownership, I'm not going to be accountable. Then it is possibly going to harm business instead of improve it. But I also think that this term has slightly been misinterpreted, because when Andre talked about it, he usually talks about things in future. He might have indication that okay, vibe coding means like coding something which generates things on the spot, and this might indicate future. But most of us took it for the present. But that's me. But then again, there's this really good Lemkin scale of vibe coding with Lemkin had pretty good spectrum that where we should and where we should not. The workflows we were just saw, those fall in the orange light. So it aligns with my own perspective as well that it's better not to develop or custom develop things if you are not a developer or a professional engineer, because it requires understanding way more than how workflows operate. And there is PII, there is governance, there is a lot more things involved, because right now when you're talking to LLM, when you're letting a system user talk to LLM, there is estimation using credits, and then there is observability, there is governance, a different kind of governance. So it's a deep field. So the good idea is like you either decide to develop or not based on whatever pros and cons you have, but you have to operate like a business owner instead of an agent owner. Then if you do get to develop it, then you do need to resolve the trust issues as well, which we talk in the next slide. So the privacy aspect is a guaranteed objective you will always get in agentic AI projects, right? And I think it's not just technical; it's also a bit more philosophical in a sense, because if you don't trust OpenAI, if your brand is not trusting OpenAI, I mean, no project has come to life, right? Even if OpenAI gives you every NDA and every contract that they are not going to use that data. For example, OpenAI LLMs, when you are using ChatGPT, right? The OpenAI LLM on the backend by default trains on your data when I am using ChatGPT or when we are using ChatGPT. But when in workflows, we are using OpenAI's GPT models via an API, the default setting is to not use your data as training, right? And the only thing they have is they write that okay, they retain your data for 30 days, and that's done for legal purposes. And even that can be provoked with some provisions if you are qualifying. So it's not that I mean, using AI is not synonymous to a breach in privacy, unlike what many objections feel like. But at the same time, it does look like that there are options. There is work being done where platforms like OpenAI or Claude, they are including a huge list of workflows. For example, OpenAI has its own trust platform where they give you all the workflows, all the details, how they process data, where are the data centers, everything which you require while discussing with privacy. And this is important because at some point it stops to become a technical problem, and it's more of a business problem, right? Which we have seen, right? Even in Marketo, we have seen that everything boils down to data, people, processes, right? Alignment. And it's same in this case. I don't want to dismiss the complexity of LLMs, but there's a reason it's cliche, right? Because it's true, right? Even if you have these agentic workflows, if I propose some kind of solution using agentic workflows, I will need to get an approval from privacy, and I will need to give them the details they need, and they're usually going to need the workflow details, how the data is moving, where are we storing the data, what data are we sending, what is the PII in that, what is the nature, is it anonymous or not, all that kind of security layer. That's where we have to take privacy and legal aspect in a very serious manner. And this is not a legal advice, right? Please don't take my word for it. If you are working on any such project, please do consult your privacy and legal teams to obtain the required approval. Okay. That would be it from my side, but we definitely expect and look forward to some adoption next year. Many reports indicate that, but for that I will give it to Ruchi.
Yeah. Thank you, Bilkar. Boring, but definitely effective and extremely useful pointers. And yes, please always consult your legal team, your privacy, for obtaining any kind of approval. So playing around with data again, these are the use cases that we discussed, and it's not necessary that AI has to be applied anywhere or everywhere possible. So AI adoption today is strongest where it saves time and scales effort, but not where it fully replaces human judgment. So that is something which is always needed. um, in this slide again, in continuation to what Balkar just suggested, and taking a reference from another survey report that was launched by Chief Martech. So here is the top AI adoption use cases, and if you see in this graph, so there are different agents divided or kind of described on the basis of different use cases or industries, I would say. So different agents, and I to explain it better, I kind of was going through the percentage of adoption, so how and where they have been adopted, and why they are kind of just to cut it short, like divided into different tiers to understand it better. For example, on the top tier, if you can see, these are top AI adoption areas. Okay, so for content production, for audience discovery, and so on and so forth. So you can see the percentage, 68.9% has been adopted while the content production. And for audience discovery, you can see the adoption percentage is 40.8%. So these are the most widely adopted use cases. So teams, they're comfortable using AI for writing, for summarization or content generation because it's low risk and immediately productive. Okay, and AI is also increasingly trusted to help identify who to target, and which is a sign that predictive and analytical AI, they're gaining acceptance in go to market teams. Also, if you take a look at comparative analysis agents, they're being used to process larger data volumes for market and competitor data faster than humans can, and also for prospect researching agents. Okay, so stronger adoption here reflects that the need to scale the personalization and account research without increasing the headcount. In the mid-tier adoption, you would see that to agentic AI, they're still emerging, but not that dominant. Looking at the percentages about social media agents, adopted about 29.1%, data hygiene or sales assistant agents. So these use cases, they show that AI is moving closer to operational and revenue impacting workflows, but still with human intersect. That's why I mentioned decision plus execution. In the lower adoption tier, okay, so these areas, they require stronger data foundations. Okay, for customer journey builder agents or ad optimization, so they require stronger data foundations and cross system orchestration whenever needed, and higher trust in AI driven decisions. In this tier where I mentioned no active use, it doesn't mean that there is no use of AI at all. So there are two things about it, like none and other. So none, it indicates that respondents who is reported that there's no active use of AI agents at the time, but again, it doesn't mean that there's zero AI exposure. So it means that AI tools have been formally deployed, okay, or the teams, they are at early adoption stage, but they are cautious and maybe waiting on governance approval. So like we just covered in the previous slides, and this bucket also represents those organizations that are using AI AI in a ways that doesn't neatly fit into the predefined agent categories listed in the survey. Okay, and other may also represent that they're using some internal AI tools or some custom in-house models have been created. Okay, so they are out of the categories which are mentioned above. And also AI, maybe it's used for reporting or forecasting or generating analytics, supporting the QA process or detecting the error or any kind of anomaly for that matter. So workflow automation, they use AI logic, but they're not branded as an agent. Okay, and again, chatbots and internal co-pilots, they also support operational teams. Okay, so what this typically tells us is very few organizations are completely AI free, and most are either experimenting or quietly benefiting from AI under the hood. So this is just to give you a glimpse that how AI has been adopted across different domains or different industries overall. Um, on top of this, this survey was released by uh, Adobe's Digital Insights team. So every quarter, they release the analysis of market trends and conducting surveys on like on US respondents for this report on the use of generative AI basically. um, so just wanted to highlight some of the outcomes and some parameters that really caught my attention. So AI adoption in online shopping is expected to grow by at least 35%. Okay, so with 53% of the consumers anticipating that they will use AI assistants for shopping by the end of 2025. Okay, so this signals a fundamental shift on how discovery or evaluation of purchase decisions they begin or they are influenced. Next, you would see is the rise of generative AI assistants, including ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot and more. So they are already shaping behavior across industries, and these tools, they are no longer just answering questions. So they are actively referring users into brand experiences. So most importantly, the AI referred traffic is higher quality, and users coming from AI assistant, they spend significantly more time on the site. And these users, they are also 27% less likely to bounce immediately. I mean, these are some fundamental outcomes from this survey. And the impact is especially dramatic if you see the last last parameter. I mean, it was mind-boggling that about 3,200% AI-driven sites visit, they grew nearly between July 2024 and May 2025, and with the 116% growth in the last quarter alone. So it highlights that how quickly AI is influencing research-heavy decisions.
I think it
So
makes sense, right? I mean,
yeah,
uh, me going to a Google search and clicking something versus me, discussing a topic and then clicking something.
mm,
It's so less like we are on the end, like we, invite everyone to, if someone wants to add any comment here or interact, like please feel free, um, um, you know, to unmute yourself and talk for any inputs, any questions as we are proceeding towards the end of this discussion. Anything, I mean, maybe comment on like, interesting here or something which was confusing.
yeah,
uh, okay, but if
yeah,
not, I think this was pretty much intact. We completed it in exactly 1 hour.
1 hour, yeah. And
uh,
thank you so much, audience, for bearing through this
this
so-called boring use cases, but they actually move the needle. And yeah,
great. I think with that we can conclude this. And if you are hibernating like me, happy holidays. And Happy Christmas, Happy New Year. Have a good time.
Happy holidays. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.